to lead the discussion of tonight on Awqaf in Singapore. Singapore, or I should say more descriptively, the city-state of Singapore is one of the smallest countries in the world. And definitely it is the smallest in Southeast Asia. Singapore also is a Muslim minority country where Muslim community comprises approximately 20% of the country's population of about 5.5 million is the total country. But here is where we can truly say that small is beautiful. Singapore is a model country regarding the development and management of Awqaf properties under the Islamic Religious Council, or MUIS, and its investment arm, Waris. Our presenter tonight is Dr. Shmsiyya bint Abdul Karim, a previous director of MUIS, is now a director of Fair Gas Investment Holdings, a Singapore company, and a senior vice president of Bank Muamalat Malaysia. She is also one of the 500 names of who's who in the Islamic finance and economics in the world. Dr. Shmsiyya, the air is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hisham. Thank you very much. Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I think I want to continue with what Dr. Hisham. We have been working on Waqaf matters way back, very long way back when he was in IDB actually. Yeah, so very glad to be meeting in this conference and webinar. I would want to continue of what the history of Singapore and how Waqaf comes about. If you look at Singapore, it is actually a secular state. It is a secular state. It's the Muslim population is a minority, which is about 12 to 13%. About 600 over 1,000 Muslims in Singapore. And what is unique in Singapore is that we have this called the Act Administration of Muslim Law Act, AMLA. So this act is actually quite similar to what Malaysia also have. But Malaysia has a more extensive act on Islamic matters. So in the Administration of Muslim Law Act, it governs some of the Muslim affairs in Singapore. So things like zakat, things like administration of mosques, administration of madrasah, matrimonial law. So you want to get married, you're divorced, we have the Sharia court, we have the Register of Muslim Marriages, and we have the implementation of Faraid, or the inheritance law in Islam. So actually the government of Singapore recognize such law for the Muslim. So if a Muslim wants to get married, they go to Register of Muslim Marriages. And one of the unique thing is also the Awqaf. The Awqaf is under the Administration of Muslim Law Act, Section 58 of the Act. So in this Act, it gives the Act governs that Waqaf should be registered. This is to, it's very important that the governance of Waqaf is being taken care of. So all Waqaf that is created must be registered, and then there will be audit and financial reports. If you look at the website that is under MUIS on the Awqaf, you can see all the properties, the income, and the expenses of each of the Waqaf properties. And coming back, how actually the history of Awqaf comes to Singapore. Okay, when it started, it's actually most of this wakaf was created from the spice route. The spice route where from Yaman, from the Hadramaut, from from those countries that when the traders came to Singapore, they set up their trading and they created wakaf. So that's how the history started. They created wakaf when they settled the settlement in Singapore. So we have history like the Al Junaid, the Al Haddad, the Al Kaf, all created the Al Sagaf, created the wakaf in Singapore, and it is quite huge when they started. And it was said that almost half of the land in Singapore belongs to Muslims. 50% of the land in Singapore are Muslim owned. There were then many madrasas, a lot of we call it musalla. Some are mosques, some are musalla. But after the industrialization and the development of Singapore in 1970s, a lot of these properties are being acquired. So when it was acquired, some of the wakaf received compensation. So when the compensation was received, it was in the form of cash compensation. And this wakaf has been transformed from a property base to a cash base. Some we still have, we retain some of the property in Singapore. We can see there are many mosques which is created by wakaf. One of the famous one is the Masjid Sultan, which is our national mosque, the Sultan Mosque. So this mosque, it has several wakaf, which is maintaining it and giving that usufruct or income to the wakaf. So what is very unique? Is that a lot of this wakaf previously when it was created, they have the commercial properties to give income to the mosque and madrasa. So this is unique about wakaf that has been created from the historical part. And when I went to Malaysia, I mean, I had the opportunity and the privilege to be part of the wakaf department in Malaysia in a bank. So it's a bank muamalat. They have a wakaf department. Malaysia are also very into wakaf. They are very passionate about wakaf, and the bank participate in this cash wakaf to create wakaf. So but mostly what they have done, which I think we should revive back. We should revive back the original way of creating wakaf, i.e., to me, there should be an income stream. So what is important in wakaf is an endowment. So it should be generating income for the benefit of the wakaf, the objective that you want to create. So if let's say you want to create a mosque, good enough. There's the wakaf of a mosque, an wakaf of a madrasa, but that is the property. So how do you maintain it? How do you make sure it is sustainable? How do you ensure that the religious teachers get his salary, the imam gets his salary, the caretaker gets his salary, the mosque is maintained with the income from the electricity, the maintenance of the electricity and so on. So we see a lot of wakaf has been in a dilapidated state. This is where the management of wakaf is very important. And the creation of the income stream and the commercial part of the wakaf that has always been neglected. People always create wakaf. Oh, I want to create a mosque. That's it, just a mosque. But they forgot that it cannot be sustainable if there are no income to maintain the mosque. So this is where the commercial part is also very important, and people forgot about that. People keep on giving on that particular property for mosque, say for madrasah or for the cemetery and so on, but the income generating part is missing. So what we have, can I just continue, is it, Mr. Hisham? I just continue, right?
Yes, yes, continue, please.
Yeah. So what we have done in Singapore is actually, when we look at all these properties, some of it has been over time, it has been acquired and so on. There come a time when where we have to be very aggressive, where we have to have very aggressive management, development of the Awqaf. So this is where the professionalism has to come in. And to tie up with the many innovative financing, many innovative management of the Awqaf. And most of the time, I've seen that the Awqaf has been restricted by the virtue of the fatwa or the injunctions that is interpreted by the religious scholars. However, we are fortunate in Singapore that the fatwa are very progressive because it looks at the maqasid of the Awqaf itself. What is it for? If it's for the betterment, for the improvement of the society, whatever administration, whatever restriction or obstruction, we should be able to overcome it. So things like istibdal, the changes of property, it was allowed, and then the financing by creating a suku, it was also allowed. So these are something that has propelled actually the Waqaf to the next level, because many times the property cannot be developed because of lack of financing. So lack of financing. Example, the one that we did for the Bencoolen Street is that there was a dilapidated mosque, and there's like 4 stories of pre-war houses and giving very almost negligible rental income. So to do a development will need a lot of financing, which we have estimated about 35 million. So in this instance, to have 35 million now, can't do it. So the only way is to raise that capital in the market. So how do we do that? So Alhamdulillah, we issue a sukuk to actually to develop the property. And these are some of the things that one, you have to be forward looking. Second, of course, it is something that is very commercial in nature. So and this is another observation that I see. Many of the Waqaf officer, they do not have the financing background. So it's important that you have the correct management, the correct officers that can manage that professionally. So so coming back on the financing, we raised the sukuk, and of course there was this fear that how can you pay back, how can you pay back? So the commercial consideration is very important. When we decide to do a development, we have to decide on what are the potential income that we will receive from this development. So the potential income and the projection of the income and expenses is very important, because we do not want to develop and then the Waqaf gets again fail in its development. There is nobody wants to rent it out, it becomes a failure. So this is a very important commercial consideration that every management of Awqaf has to understand. And also the problem with when people, the public perception of Waqaf, they will think that, oh, this is a Waqaf property, so I must get a discount for the rental. That is always the public perception, that if it is an Awqaf property, if it's an Awqaf asset, I must get a discount. So they forgot that the objective of the Awqaf is, for example, is for the mosque, is for the madrasah. I'm not going to subsidize a businessman who is going to run their business. I am going to have the income to be given to the madrasah or the mosque. The objective, the beneficiary of the Awqaf itself. So what happened is that public perception, they wanted, if it's an Awqaf, oh, I can get a very, cheap rental discount. Because of that, if you succumb to that, the idea of discounting some of this rental, you will not achieve your income projection. So I see this in some of the Malaysian Awqaf that has been practiced by some of the management because of the perception of the public that it should be discounted. While we do not want it to be too expensive, because some of the people who rent it out are organization who does charity work. So you got to balance while helping the community, plus ensuring that the objective of the Awqaf or the Waqf is being fulfilled. So because when you manage an Awqaf, you are the trustee, you are the administrator. So whatever objective of the trust or the Awqaf, you must fulfill it 100%. So you cannot have other objectives to, to help the businessman and so on and so forth. So it is very important because it is an amanah, it is a trust. So coming back to amanah and trust, governance is very key. Governance is very key. Sad to say, it's very difficult to go online. You go to the website to get an annual report of a Waqaf, Awqaf properties, income and balance sheet statement, the financial statement of the particular Awqaf. One is not transparent. Second, I'm not sure many are not putting it up, let alone maybe some of the Awqaf is not even audited. Some may not even know that there exists a Waqaf land and so on. So these are some of the administration and governance auditing issues that you need to Awqaf need to level up. I mean, if we are not even talking about aggressive investment portfolio. So if you look at another step that we should take is the endowment. If you look at most endowment in the West, they are able to achieve a certain benchmark. So again, Awqaf has to have that professionalism to create a fund or the assets of the Awqaf to receive a certain benchmark level of its investment. Let's say you want to beat the MSCI index, you want to beat the Dow Jones index, or you want to have a return of net return of more than 5%. So these are very important, benchmark professionalism to be put into the practice of Awqaf in these modern days. So it's no longer slip-slop kind of management. It has to be managed very professionally, because if you look at the Awqaf assets in Singapore, it's already about 800 million. It's going to be 1 billion, and properties are very, very expensive in Singapore. Very expensive. So one thing good about it is that even you do anything, it's easy to sell, it's easy to rent, it's easy to get income out of the assets. And Singapore being a financial center, I think one of the challenges is to allow for more Sharia compliant investment. so that the portfolio can be a mix of property and stock and in sukuks and so on, so that it has diversification of its portfolio in the Awqaf portfolio. So these are the very important things that I think.
Dr. Shemsiya, let's wind it up in 2 minutes, please, to give the chance to our participants to ask questions.
Okay. So again, to wrap up, I think one of the most important is the professionalism, the management of the Awqaf itself, and the governance and transparency of managing its Awqaf. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shemsiya. That was a very interesting presentation. It gave us the history of Awqaf in Singapore from the time the Arabs came to Singapore as early in the 1800s, I suppose, when the first people came from Yemen and Hadramaut, and they established Awqaf in Singapore. And since then, you know, the Waqf culture in Singapore has gone through stages, apparently, you know, from the time from just, you know, concentrating on mosques, and then they realized that we need also some investable assets so that we can maintain the, you know, the upkeep and the sustainability of the Awqaf. I would like now to open the floor for some questions from the audience. Probably Dr. Sami Salahat, do you have any question to ask?
I have, but I prefer to ask others before I ask, because I think to allow to others to ask. Yes, because I think I saw many questions in the chat. So
okay,
let me first listen to them. Yeah.
Okay, I cannot see who's asking.
Doctor, we have it from Dr. Mustafa.
Dr. Mustafa.
I think Mr. Zainul, also engineering Muaz. No, sorry. We have many people they want to ask.
All right.
Mr. Zainul, Dr. Mustafa. Yes. Yeah.
Let's start with Dr. Mustafa then, and then we will take
brother Hani Sulaiman from US. Also, brother Hani Sulaiman.
Hani Sulaiman. Okay.
A brother from US. Brothers. Yeah. Yes.
All right. Let's start with Dr. Mustafa, and then we'll follow up with then we'll take Mr. Zainul and then Mr. Hani Sulaiman. Okay. Dr. Mustafa?
Dr. Mustafa is the question, did you reach with Muslim there with Waqaf to be as a culture among them so that they are awareness to make a family Waqf? What about non-Muslim?
Yes.
Is that the question, right? Okay, on family Waqf, I think as in many of these family Waqf in Singapore, like I mentioned last time, it started from Hadramaut and so on. So you have the Al Junaid, you have the Al Kaf, you have the Al Haddad, you have the Al Gulia, and so on. You also have like the Indian Muslims. But sad to say, there are no new family Waqaf that has been created. One, property in Singapore is very, very expensive, and the rich Singaporean would prefer to put in cash Awqaf. So we have created a cash Waqaf which is called Wakaf Ilmu. And recently also I have launched an endowment, which is for the, under the, which I mentioned, I'm a director currently in Pergas Investment Holding. We created an endowment. So this is like a cash wakaf, so that they can over time build up their wakaf portfolio. But sad to say, the family wakaf is there's no addition to it. We hope there will be, Muslims, even foreigner in Singapore who wants to establish the awqaf there. But of course, there's other reason as well, because MUIS is a state board. This is under government. Some of them may want to have their own flexibility of managing this awqaf outside the government control. So that's the pitfall. Okay, then I think he asked about non-Muslim. What about non-Muslim with your wakaf? Do you have some wakaf that can non-Muslim be as a beneficiary? Yes, there is. There is this particular wakaf that provide the poor and needy free medical. So they didn't say whether it's Muslim or non-Muslim. So we do have non-Muslim beneficiary for the wakaf. Okay.
All right.
So,
thank you, Dr. Shemsiyah.
Next question. Yeah.
Mr. Zaino, Brother Zaino. I'll take a question from Brother Zaino now.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Hisham, and all the other guests there, Dr. Shemsiyah. You talked about this Bencoolen project. I think if you can just explain to everyone there the nature of that particular project and what sort of benefit it's bringing to the community and to the Waqf itself as a mosque project that now has an apartment building on the property as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for highlighting that. Yeah, that is, I will say, our iconic project. In fact, we got the award from the Sheikh Al Maktoum Award for creating the first Waqaf Sukuk and first Waqaf sovereign project, because we are a step board to create that particular project in Bencoolen Street. Okay, what happened? Bencoolen Street is quite in the middle of town in Singapore, so property there fetches a very high rental yield. So we have transformed the particular property into a 110 rooms of service apartment, which is now run by Escort. As you know, Escort is a very well-known name in service apartment all over the world. So we got the brand Somerset brand as the service apartment for that particular development, and also some shops below it, and a brand new mosque. So it was a dilapidated mosque. Through the development, by raising sukuk of about 35 million, we are able to develop the property. So the property has transformed from getting almost a negligible rental to a rental of about a gross rental of about 8 million a year. So the income has, this is where I say with professional management, income will increase exponentially for the awqaf. So what benefit it gives is that first, the mosque got a free mosque, a brand new free mosque. Second, there are rental income for the mosque. Third, we generated economic activity, because if you create, you create the service apartment, there are jobs created, and you will have maintenance and so on and so forth. So, and also because of the development, the asset valuation has also increased tremendously. In fact, that particular project, Mr. Zainul, Dr. Zainul, we managed to clear off the debt in about 10 years. 10 years, the debt are cleared and the property is 100% fully owned, and from a very low valuation, it now may have maybe almost 70 to 80 million kind of valuation for that property. So that's how it is done. We use a sukuk musyarakah. So that's why I mentioned professionalism, and they need to be a bit more aggressive in creating.
So Sister Shamsiya, that the beneficiaries of that particular waqf, is it purely the mosque or the beneficiaries?
It's actually purely the mosque. It's purely the mosque. But you see, the mosque, while it doesn't mention, because the mosque can actually create many other activities. The mosque can give to the poor, the mosque can create classes, the mosque can expand when it has more income. It's actually a good problem if they have more income.
I have a few other questions, but I'll give Dr. Hisham, if you allow some others to ask, then you can come back.
Yes, well, I have just one question. You know, Dr. Shamsiya, in Malaysia, they have a number of awqaf. Some awqaf are under the control of the Chinese, where, you know, under this hooker mode of financing, where they take the waqf property virtually forever. Do you have anything like this in Singapore?
In Penang.
In Penang, yes, they do have that, you know. So,
but what was the question?
The question, you know, in Malaysia, there are some waqf that are rented out by way of hooker, the mode of financing, the old modality of hooker, you know, to the Chinese for a pittance, really. And these awqaf, I visited some of them. They are run down to such an extent, and the only beneficiary is really the Chinese. Do you have anything like this in Singapore?
Okay, yes. Some of the development that we use, we actually lease for 99 years. We once we develop the awqaf, we lease the property for 99 years. And in Singapore, when we lease the property, it is not restricted to only the Muslims. It can also be sold to the so-called sold, because it's a very long lease, 99 years. However, the income that we receive from there is then created for another development. So it's just actually a way of liquidating the assets. It's not giving to the Chinese, and then there is no benefit back to the awqaf itself. But we have to be careful in using this system, because it may and it has, Dr. Hisham, it has fall into some non-Islamic Sharia compliant activity. We had cases where they use it for, you know, for a temple. Actually, they created a temple at the premises, and we have to, you know, go down and mention that this is not allowed. So what we need to do is to actually put, now after that incident, we put a covenant to say that whatever the lease, if it's a long lease, that we must write down that it cannot be used as a temple, it cannot be used for certain conditions. But we cannot tell them, like, because it's a non-Muslim, we cannot restrict them that they can't consume, say, pork, alcohol in the premises. That cannot be controlled if you already give a 99-year lease. So
yes, but in the 99 lease, is the rent subject to review, or is it indexed to some CPI or any benchmark?
No.
Or is it
No.
fixed throughout
It's
the
fixed.
99?
Yes, it's
Well,
fixed.
Because you see, with inflation, then that money or that rent that you get now may, you know, be negligible few years down the line, unless it is indexed and there can be some rent review. What are you doing about this? Because this is even worse than, you know, because at the end, let's say, let's not wait for 90 years. Even if we take 20-year period, after 20 years, you know, the inflation will just about eat up the rent, and what you will get from the waqf, only the name that this is a waqf, and the only beneficiary really of that waqf is those who are non-Muslims and who are, as you say, maybe consuming pork and consuming alcohol and so on, and doing, you know, things which are repugnant to Sharia.
Yeah. Okay, Dr. Hisham, when that's why I mentioned just now, the 99-year lease is almost like a sale.
Yes.
Where you fix the price. So the amount that you get, you have to transfer it to another assets, so that you will not be affected by the inflation and so on. So let's say 99 years, you get the lease upfront. You let's say you get 500,000. That 500,000 that you get, you must invest in something that can generate even more income.
So this
If
is like
you
said
have,
that.
if you mismatch, then you are right.
Yes.
It is going to devalue the waqf. It's going to devalue.
Thank you. We'll take now Dr. Hani Sulaiman.
Doctor, he said he already got the answer. She answered already about his question.
He did? Okay, who's?
Yeah, but I have a question, if you allow me,
okay,
please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Shmsiyya, last time when we visit Malaysia and see management of bank CIMB, they informed our team that we have a new model with Awqaf Singapore to establish a new project, Awqaf project in Singapore by Majlis Ugama Islam, and they said we use investment sukuk, and the bank informed us this is the first model we use in the Muslim world with the Awqaf Foundation only in Singapore. My question, what's the mean of investment sukuk, which we use it with the bank CIMB? You can give me more information about this model?
For the property or just investment?
The property, yes. He said we use with your Majlis Ugama Islam, they use this one, investment sukuk istithmariya, investment sukuk. Do you have any experience, any notes about this project?
I don't have, but I know they issue investment sukuk for any development. But this type of sukuk is it is a general sukuk where any development they can use that particular amount to be used for any financing of project for Awqaf. So like in the conventional form, they call it MTI. One thing that is not very, not very ideal, not very ideal in that sukuk is that it does not match the actual project that it is done, because it has a pool. Then you just use the money. You have a project, we will issue that. But in a like musharaka, in a listing, you have to identify all the parties. So for example, the Progress Investment also, we also took a CIMB financing to purchase a recent property about 29 million in Singapore. So it is also a Sharia compliant, but it's almost like a term financing.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
so that is the instrument that they use.
Okay, okay. If you allow me the other question, Doctor.
Okay, please.
In universities in Singapore, we have many universities in Singapore. Have endowment. No, yes, in Singapore. I think we have 4 universities. They have resource which we call endowment in Singapore. Do you have as the Muslim Majlis Ugama Islam any related with this department in Singapore universities?
Related to this
fund, endowment fund? No. This is not who control this endowment funds, non-Muslim, yeah?
Yeah, non-Muslim. So what happened is that they don't follow any Sharia compliant investment. So you have like National University of Singapore, NTU, National Technology. They have very huge endowment. Okay, just to add to that, just to add to that endowment, there's also a problem with our charities and societies. They do not have that reserve endowment model to begin with. So because of that, sustainability is an issue.
Yeah, I think National University in Singapore, I think it has around 3 billion US.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Hisham.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, who's next?
Doctor, we have many questions. Someone from Pakistan, Mr. Aizal from Pakistan, he wants to ask.
Yes.
Mr. Aizal from Pakistan. Okay, he wants to ask maybe. Yes.
Because I cannot see here who is raising hands.
In the chatting, Doctor. In the chat, you can find Dr. Mr. Aizal, but here the left. Dr. Hisham. Brother Muaz, you can help us, please. You can allow him to come to talk, to ask. Okay.
I need him to raise hand.
Yeah, please. However, okay. Dr. Hisham. Doctor, you have any question? Yes. Yeah.
I cannot see the people who want to ask.
Doctor, okay, we have many questions in the chat. Sister Shemsiya, in the chat, you have many questions to you. If you see
in the chat, but I can't. Whose question?
If you may, if I may come in here.
Okay.
So I know that in Singapore there is a system where every employee across the country have to contribute a certain amount to the Mosque Development Fund, which is literally to develop the Awqaf in Malaysia, in Singapore as well. Perhaps could you just explain that system, how it works, so for the benefit of everyone else there? Because in my view, it's probably one of the best models that we have in any Muslim minority country, where there's a way in which there's a resource mobilization taking place almost on a monthly basis from the population.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zainal. Yes, we have what we call the system of Mosque Building and Mendaki Fund. So every employee, Muslim employee, we call it obligatory voluntary contribution to the fund. This is taken from when they pay, the employer pays salary, they have to give a certain portion to CPF. CPF is like our pension fund. So they becomes our agent for collection of the mosque building fund. Because of that, we have about 270,000 Muslim employees, 290,000 Muslim employees, and it ranges from depending on their income level, from $5 all the way up to $15 per month of contribution. So every month, Majlis Agama Islam, the Islamic Religious Council receive about almost $1 million a month. So imagine for over 1 year, we can almost build one mosque. So usually,
MashaAllah.
usually about 2 years lah. We will because the fund goes into now has been channeled also to madrasah. So there are 70 over mosques in Singapore, almost about 74 mosques now in Singapore. So although it looks small, $5, $10, but every month the istiqamah of giving, every Muslims giving it to the fund has allowed Singapore community to build its own mosque without any help from governments or anybody. So it's just from the public, the Muslim public.
Okay. Nice.
Right. Let's take another question.
Another question, Doctor. We have someone ask about the amount of real estate and cash waqf in Singapore. In Singapore, do you have any estimated of the real estate, real estate?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Just now I mentioned about now it's about 800 to 900 million.
Million Singapore dollars?
Yes, Singapore dollars. US, maybe 500, 600 million, 500, half a billion US dollar, half a billion.
And we have a small state, 500 millions.
500
million. 1 billion, half billion. Half a billion US dollar.
Yes.
Half a billion US
dollar. Income around.
I don't have the actual.
What's the percentage return?
Yeah.
Oh, the yield, the yield are not high. The yield may be around 2 to 3%. Because of rental, because of the high assets value. The rental yields are very low, and the portfolio are mostly in property. But when we put into fund management portfolio, Dr. Sami, we can receive about 4%. 4 to 5%.
Are these properties, the waqf properties, revalued periodically?
Yes, every year. We have the accounting standard. Every year we have to do a valuation.
I see. One question, one quick one. The contributions or the donations to MUIS or to Waris, are these tax deductible?
Unfortunately, the waqf donation are not tax deductible. Zakat is tax deductible.
Zakat
but waqf is not. But income from the waqf is not taxed by the government. Income is not taxed. Yeah. But you contribute, you don't get tax deduction.
Just a general question. The beneficiaries that Singapore has from the waqf, are they only national? Are they only Muslim? Or are they also non-Muslim, and are they also international?
Because the beneficiary, it comes from from Hadramaut and so on. So we have international beneficiaries as well. We have a mosque in Indonesia as one of the beneficiary. We have in Mecca, Medina. We have in Sana'a, mosque in Tarim, mosque in Sana'a that we gave. We have mostly depending on the waqif where they come from. If they come from Indonesia, then there will be beneficiaries in Indonesia.
Nice.
And just now I mentioned the non-Muslim also, like poor and needy, so the non-Muslim also benefited.
Dr. Hisham, we have other Dr. Handri from Indonesia.
Yes.
Dr. Handri.
Assalamualaikum, brother.
Waalaikumsalam.
Dr. Shmsiyah.
Yes. Alhamdulillah.
I would like to ask you one question that Mosque Building Mendaki Fund, MBMF, is it obligatory or voluntary?
That's why I mentioned is obligatory, voluntary donation. What I mean is it is automatic. you want to opt out, then you have to, you have to apply. You don't apply to give. You have to apply not to give. so it makes people difficult for people. If you make it difficult, people like very lazy to not give.
Yeah. To apply, not to give. Yeah.
Yeah. So so it's easy. Just like the the road ERP, the toll is automatic in Singapore. Singapore is very good at taking money. You don't have to. You just go in and they deduct your money.
Yeah. And the second question for Somerset Bencoolen, because I often visit Singapore. I saw the masjid. The masjid is under in the basement, right? Why the masjid in the basement, not in the top?
Oh, not at the top, because it's not at the basement. Actually, it has its own land. It is sitting on. It's not a basement. Bencoolen is not a basement. I think there's one which is at the bank. Is it? You went? That is under OUB. That particular mosque.
No. When I pass, when I visit the masjid, I saw the masjid like in the first basement, like lower than the land.
No. It's at the land level. So they have basement, they have the land level, and yeah. Initially, when we design, it was even they wanted to use the space, the top space, to put the service apartment so that they maximize the commercial area. But then the religious fatwa mentioned that there should not be, especially Indian Muslim, there should not be anything above the mosque. So it was done such that nothing is above the mosque. So it has its own area. So the service apartment was behind. I remember when we did the design, they don't allow. In fact, initially it was a swimming pool on top of the mosque. So that was not allowed.
Yeah. Not allowed. Okay, Doctor, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If I may.
Yes, please.
I would like to share. We visited Singapore a few months ago, and we were taken on a tour of some of the waqfs, and I would like to share one particular one where, in fact, Sister Shamsiyya talks about where the mosque is separate from the development. This is not the Bencoolen one, but actually it's a
Al-Huda, is it?
Oh, okay. So this was I think in one of the areas where a very nice apartment building was actually set up. So the apartments are actually very, very, I would say, high tech and very
high class.
High class.
Yes, very, very. It was a completely new building, and the rentals were also like phenomenal. 8,000 Singapore dollars per month. I think that was the rental that was being charged for those apartments. So that was the one that we visited. The other one was the bakery, Red House Bakery.
House, yeah.
Yes.
Red House.
That was also quite an amazing waqf, actually. And also where there was extra land, they actually built apartments there. So they didn't waste the land. And then the income from this was also then, going towards the original waqf.
Doctor, okay.
Right.
Somebody sent questions to Doctora.
Okay.
He said, Doctora, Singapore is the world leading financially country. Therefore, my questions are, how this help Awqaf in Singapore? And second, what are the advantages of establishing Awqaf organization in Singapore, especially online? And what your advice in this regard?
Sorry,
Two questions.
First one is
two
what?
questions. The first question, how this help, he discussing about the Singapore is a world leading financial country. Therefore, my questions are how this help Awqaf in Singapore.
Financial.
He said, he asked about the rule of finance in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
This affect positively to the Awqaf organization?
Okay. Currently, the financial situation in Singapore, we do not have the financial Sharia compliant finance as in Malaysia. So in Malaysia, you have a lot of the Sharia compliant products and so on, but we have limited. So sometimes we are subjected to that, non-financial, non-Sharia compliant investment. So, but Alhamdulillah, now we have CIMB coming in, Maybank coming in. We have alternative, but very limited in Singapore. So while it is a financial hub in itself, but it's a lot conventional. And that is I think the biggest hurdle and restriction that we are currently having.
Dr. Shemsiya, I have a question. Are you restricted in investing Awqaf money outside of Singapore? Say if you have some cash waqf or some excess funds, excess liquidity that you may find it more Sharia compliant if you invest in Malaysia or elsewhere, considering that you don't have many Sharia compliant products in Singapore.
Yeah.
Can you do that? Are you allowed to do that? Okay.
Under the Islamic Religious Council is a STAT board. So as a statutory board, they are governed by the investment policy of the government. Is it very noisy, the background? Starting to cook at the kitchen. So it's very restricted as a statutory board for us to invest outside, because the investment policy as a statutory board, not as a waqaf. The statutory board is very restricted. But however, because of the Sharia compliant, we do buy sukuk, which is international in nature, through our fund managers. So we have sukuk from Dubai, from Saudi, and so on. So that kind of investment we can. But private investment, I think it is not allowed. Currently, it's not allowed.
So indirect investment is allowed, but not direct investment.
Yeah, not direct investment.
Yeah, thank you. All right, do we have any other questions? I cannot.
Doctor,
anybody else?
I think last question. Someone asked Doctora Shemsiya, he said, do you have any Sharia committee in Awqaf organization in Singapore? Do you have Sharia committee?
Yes, definitely, because it is Islamic Religious Council, so not just Sharia committee. We have the fatwa. We have the fatwa committee, which will give fatwa on many matters with regards to the Awqaf development, Awqaf financing, and anything to do with even the beneficiaries of the Awqaf.
I think this is the last question, Dr. Hisham.
Okay, well, let me then close this session. Well, at the end of this blessed session, I would like to thank Dr. Shemsiya for her very informative presentation, and also for bearing with us, considering the inconvenient hours I think she may have to stay up all night really to be with us, and maybe she can manage to catch a wink or two before she has to get up again. Right.
Okay.
Well, I also would like to thank you, Dr. Sami, for making these sessions possible. I'd like to thank also Dr. Maad Hashim. I'd like to thank all the participants. And at the end, we usually, what do we recite Surah Al-Asr, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بالصبر. Thank you. صدق الله العظيم.
Thank you to all of you. Assalamu alaikum. Barakallahu fikum. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallahu fiik.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Jazakallah khairan.
Salam.
Maybe Dr. Sami could just tell us the next programs for the benefit of the listeners in English and the Arabic programs. Muaz, can you tell us? No. Okay. Okay. I think Dr. Sami said there was a program that's going to be held with the Dubai Oqaf, and there was another one you mentioned as well, but I can't remember. Anyway, okay. Jazakallah. If anybody wants to just see these pictures that
Zainul, where is the record of this one?
Sorry?
Brother Zainul have some picture to show.
Yeah, okay. I'll show you this. So this picture here, this is the model of this mosque. And this was a piece of land that just had a little hut on it. And what they've done is they've put up this really AAA grade building, apartments. These are really state-of-the-art apartments, and they've upgraded the masjid as well. So they've actually very cleverly used the vacant land or that dilapidated hut that used to be the hut of the imam here, and now they've constructed this building and they financed it, and they're getting a very good rental income. So that's the one that I wanted to show. The other one that I want to show is this particular this Waqf story here, the Katong Bakery story, and it's about this woman here, this Sharifa Zain. So here again, they had this bakery, but behind here there was a vacant piece of land, and they've actually used that land also to build some apartments. So the story about this is that her father, I think, brought this in, it was in 1957. The Al-Sakhof family, 1957, converted into a Waqf or Islamic endowment. And today, what happens is that her story is that this Waqf now provides free medicines to the poor and needy in Singapore. So this is, this is just some really innovative examples of what Singapore is doing. And I think it's really a lesson for all of us, in terms of what they are doing. And I think, Brother Hisham, your expertise with all the build, operate, transfer type of projects that happen, Singapore is really, I think, one of the world leaders in this type of development. So yes. I thought I'll just share these with you, with everyone.
Yeah, this is true. Actually, Singapore is considered a model country regarding the development and management of Awqaf properties.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyway, Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much to everyone out there, to Dr. Shmsiya, Dr. Hisham, our engineer there, Muaz, handling the whole program very professionally.
Thank you.
All the best for the next next suhoor for the people in Indonesia and Malaysia and Singapore. And we still have a way to go for our suhoor, but we'll catch a little bit of a nap now.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay, Mahasi.